Hey guys, it's Dan here. Today, I'm going to show you how I made 5 mirrors and 279 divines without even getting into maps. I'm going to show you from scratch how I started this as soon as I started playing POE. So, this video may be a bit long and you probably want to rush back into mapping to grind for a few exalts. But if you watch this video and subscribe to me, you might be making divines in that same time from today and henceforth. I know most of you are smarter than the average streamer on Twitch. So let's begin. The first thing I needed to begin is a transmute. For this, I farm the Miller and Clearfell until I get one, or I just disenchant magic stuff for it. This is the base to begin with. Now we go into the trade site and look for a unique that most players would buy. I went for Pillar of the Caged God and then activated live search until someone genuinely sold it for a transmute. This took me a bit while to find a response, but it was worth it. Pillar of the Caged God is actually 5 exalts without corruption, and you can take advantage of the trade as you get used to the market prices. The purpose of this simple example here is to test how far you can go with flipping items and selling it for a bigger price. Then I bought this ring for 2 exalts, which I then sold for 30x. This is just by smart searching the items with the weighted sum method. This is something a lot of people don't know in Path of Exile 2. I'll explain about the values and the method to generate them later. So after figuring this simple idea, I started taking it quite further, more into its expansion stages. And to my surprise, I realized that the further more you take, the better results you get. But at some point, you will realize that flipping items is not enough to make consistent profit. So here on out, I improvised a bit further by purchasing items with empty slots and without socketed runes in them. This includes stuff like two-handed weapons and body armors. Even though the trade site shows items with maxed quality, it doesn't show what it is if you enhance them further with stuff like iron runes. With empty prefixes and the items being this cheap, I'd take a deterministic gamble to exalt them for added physical damage. For this, you also make sure the items are not corrupted. This was super deterministic profit for me, selling stuff like this for multiple exalts easily. This is because most people usually search for bows primarily based on physical DPS. When you meet the threshold above this weighted sum, the item will cost you several exalts just for that small difference. I realized that bows seem to sell much faster than wands, belts, and even rings. So here, we want 2 of these mods from a magic bow. Thanks to Path of Exile, I know what the highest value we can get for these mods. The maximum you can get for the average added physical damage is around 50, and the maximum for the average percentage increased physical damage is 180, which means each point of flat physical damage is 180 divided by 50, that is 3.6. This is how I give the values for the weights here. This is really simple once you get used to it. For the minimum weighted sum, you can fiddle around after sorting with the maximum you can get in the results. This may take a bit of research to find that sweet spot where exactly the price starts to climb exponentially up. And then you buy the cheap item, which is just below that stage. Here's another example a lot of players don't know. So recently, I saw a content creator buying items using minimum values for each resistances. This is exactly how most players buy their items from trade. The problem is, you can get a total high resistance values, then looking for an item which is evenly spread out for resistances. In other words, an item with a total of 40% lightning and cold res is far better than an item with 20% cold, fire, and lightning res, because the weighted sum on the first one is 80, but the later only 60. At 80, this is 5 exalts. But if you make it 100, you notice the price exponentially goes up to 50 and above. This is exactly where you can exploit the system. Finally, a cherry on top of the iceberg. I have to warn you guys first. I do not recommend gambling in POE if it costs you more than what you earn in this game. So I took my chances back when white stellar amulets were like 5 exalts each, whereas the chance orbs were 10. Right now, each of these costs like 50 to 90. So I would recommend chancing something else like white sapphire rings or heavy belts, which are above item level 50. But there's another way to deterministically gamble, which is using Alva in your hideout. This only costs you gold. But if you are playing the endgame maps, you are anyway making a lot of gold. The point of this video, however, is not to play the game. It's not worth playing without Temporalis, Hand of Wisdom, Ingenuity, and all those super expensive stuff. If you are playing the game, you either one-shot stuff or you get one-shotted. That's literally POE 2 in a nutshell. So, moral of the story is be smart and be one step ahead of everyone else. That's my strat. If you are with me on this, then subscribe. This is the end of part 1 where I made my first mirror. I will continue to share the rest of the story if there are people listening. Thanks, guys.